have a smash and Gav report, and it looks like Elder is in. More to come. Hi, everybody, and welcome to your Thursday edition of Black Spring with Autumn. And of course, it is an 11th hour stream. Once again, thank you guys so much for all your support and all that you do and coming in. So, on this segment, we want to get into a couple of things, but before I do that, I want to say thank you to our loyal patrons and subscribers, and of course, the viewers like yourself. I'll be right back. Thank you guys so much once again. And just a little bit of housekeeping, if you will. We are now streaming live on LBRY and Odyssey. So you can catch us on any of those platforms if you are tuned in or tapped in, or even if you are following another channel on that particular platform, you can catch us there as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it on this Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. And hello to Jermaine G. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So once again, if you are not familiar with LBRY or Odyssey, I think it is taken off quite a bit since I initially joined, but it looks like there's a lot of possibilities there. Of course, you will be able to find the Black Spring catalog, for lack of a better word. You can find it seemingly comfortably housed on LBRY as well as Odyssey. So it's also being streamed on LBRY. So looks like the other platforms are kind of stepping it up, and you know what's happening on the other side of things. So what I want to get into is, of course, we've had a couple of updates throughout the week in regard to, of course, the recall candidates in California. So we're going to revisit that. I'll give you some of the latest developments on that. But right off, we're going to deal with what I'm referring to as a smash and Gav. And that means, looks like Gavin Newsom has a new approach to dealing with theft. So, you know, and I think this is, to me, I would say that this is nothing more than this is more of a shift because, I think the competition has, it's a little bit more stiff. And actually, more candidates have been added to the list, and that we have a victory for one of our candidates that we've been talking about throughout the week. So we will get into that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you just a little bit of background information on this. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jermaine G, for coming in. I really appreciate it. And if you're out there, you're not decided whether you're coming in or not, I always appreciate you guys for considering, because you do have choices out there, and there is a lot of competition amongst platforms. So what I'm going to start with, actually, we're going to go ahead and start with, because of this campaign, this recall election is less than 10 weeks out. So I would imagine things are going to get stirred up quite a bit. So let's go ahead and dive in. And I want to talk to you just really quickly about, I think that the impetus or the imminence in this call for legislation or adjustment in legislation is because of the amount of theft and the smash and grab that's happening and the shoplifting that's happening in the San Francisco area that's so out of control that even the retailers are closing their stores. And of course, it creates a problem, okay? Is it not only creates a problem for the corporate on the corporate side, it creates a problem for the consumers, and it basically takes them out of their way or takes them out of their ability to, obtain, whether it's goods, services, or medications. And those are all important. And unfortunately, we have like CVS, Walgreens at the forefront of some of the store closings. So I just want to get you into that. But I want to say also, ahead of all of this, back in 2014, California passed a ballot measure called the Proposition 47, which deems any nonviolent theft of items worth less than $950 as a misdemeanor and not a felony. And I'm going to let you hear specifically and directly from King Newsom himself. And so he can tell you about, he's going to give you his version of reality, as he always does. And of course, you can decide for yourselves on that. So yeah, we're going to go into that. I'm just going to give you a little bit on one specific liner before we get completely going here. So I'm going to share this one with you just a second, because we have a little bit to get into. But of course, this does not look good. It does not look good in terms of, his chances, because I think the contenders or the candidates who have been added to the list are raising the stakes, and it's putting a new front runner and giving him a run for his money, which, it's well deserved. Okay, so I'm going to share this liner with you. We're a little bit behind the ball on this one, but it's okay. It's still, I think, relevant to what's going on in terms of this whole recall election. So this is from Yahoo News, and you see your imagery here is a Walgreens, and I presume this one is out. It's out of San Francisco, possibly. According to this, among the many problems plaguing San Francisco in recent years, business leaders say one has become so commonplace that residents barely notice it: shoplifting. Walgreens says petty theft in the city has gotten so out of control, it has had to close 17 of its stores. CVS has told its employees not to intervene because the thieves so often attack them, calling San Francisco, quote, one of the epicenters of organized retail crime, end quote. Quote, we've had incidents where our security officers are assaulted on a pretty regular basis in San Francisco, end quote. Brenda Dugan, head of the CVS Retail Crime Division, said at a May 13th hearing with city officials, according to a New York Times report. So here again, I'm showing you this example because Newsom has had a change of heart, because of course Newsom has his own global, his own utopic plans and initiatives for fewer prisoners, fewer prisons, the whole 9 yards. So, and this is all to save money is what he has been touted as saying. So this is kind of, to me, some of the impetus for, or a catalyst for some of this, what I think. But it's also about this recall election. I think he's trying to clean up some of his mess. But I think it might be, I think he's gonna have a challenge. Look who's here. Thank you guys so much for coming in. It's Backyard Politics. Hi, Backyard Politics. How are you? Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And Latin Patriots here. Thank you guys. And Latin Patriot says, am I supposed to? Now that is, those handles are not, that is not nothing. That's nothing that I require. That's not, you do what you do. Yeah, do what you do. I could crack a joke there, but I'm not going to. You know what? I need to do that. Jermaine G, I'm not sure. I haven't heard from him in a while. That's a very good point. And Latin Patriot says Newsom is Nancy Pelosi's nephew. Yes. From what I understand, that's by marriage, I think. But of course, it's still a protected class, right? No less. Okay. So after giving you a little bit of the skinny there, I want you to have an opportunity to see what King Gavin Newsom himself has to say about the policies as they stand and the policies. Who knows if he's going to give you a full picture of this, but we'll see. And most of this I have not viewed myself, so we're all going to be in on this one together. And I don't mean to borrow that tagline because I don't like it. We'll watch this one together, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and share that screen with you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn on Thursday. Okay, so yes, we're going to go over to that screen, and it's going to come out of KTLA. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So yes, I'm going to be taking you over right now. And if you haven't had a chance to hit the like button, for what it's worth, you'll have an opportunity to do that before the close of the stream. Okay, actually, I have a couple of these going on here. Just hang on one second. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Also, just FYI, for those of you that are just now joining us, we are streaming live on Odyssey and LBRY as well. So if you are, on the platform or viewing the platform with other content creators, then you'll be able to catch Black Spring there as well. So thank you guys so much for all of your support, because they are the grips are getting a little bit tighter. I think everybody's starting to feel everybody's starting to feel the grips a little bit better right about now, whether you want to or not. So I'm going to share this screen with you, and you can hear from Newsom yourself. You don't have to hear from me on this one. I think it's better if you hear it from him. And this is actually going to come out of a U.S. News and World Report, which I rarely get into, but we will do that. And yes, to backyard politics. Yes, I'm going to get into Mr. Elder in just a second. So I really appreciate it. I'm goofing a little bit here, but I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, so here we're going to have some words from our friends at U.S. News and Report.
Speak to the governor one-on-one. There are some people that say some of the policies championed by Democrats, like Prop 47 and others, are making crime worse.
Yeah,
what do you say to that?
Well, the evidence doesn't back it up. The last 3 decades, we've actually seen a significant decline in crime in the state. You're seeing crime increase in red states.
Sarah, you said you were buying a car today.
Dad,
I stayed up and crunched all the numbers.
I already
Hang
used
on,
Apple
just
One Auto Navigator. I found my car online and got pre-qualified instantly. Easy.
That is not a part of the skit here. Believe it or not. Okay, we're gonna get past that one. So just give me just a second here. Apologize for the sponsorship here. But yes, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And we are back.
This reform.
Particularly the gun violence.
The governor in Long Beach on this day to meet with mayors and law enforcement officials from the 13 biggest cities in California, both in person and virtually. LAPD Chief Michael Moore on hand.
We see this as this increase in violence as yet another part of the outgrowth of this pandemic.
Nice to see you.
Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia introducing the governor to local business owners impacted by the pandemic, including the Portfolio Coffee House.
So don't forget about us. We're still.
Hang on, guys.
What's your message to business owners who say that they're hurting?
because many are. And that's why we put up $4 billion, $4.2 billion in not loans, grants, direct grants. And we're still encouraging people to apply for those grant programs.
In Long Beach right now, everyone inside is required to wear a mask regardless of vaccination status due to an increase in the Delta variant. Right now in California, about 63% of the state has received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, meaning about 40% hasn't. You have done so much.
Okay, guys, I am sorry about this. So gross.
Traveled the state, offered millions of dollars, offered so many giveaways, and yet there are still millions of Californians who are saying, no, I don't want it. How do you get through to those people? And if those people still refuse, how do you do public policy acknowledging that maybe they're never going to take it?
Well, we got to meet people where they are. We are trying to combat the misinformation on these right-wing shows, these right-wing pundits that are simply ideological about this.
He says if more people got vaccinated, the tide would turn quickly.
In a month or so, this could substantially.
Okay, you guys, we get it. I do apologize for this ad. Yikes.
At least in California, be behind us.
The governor was pressed.
Okay, if you could pick up anything from that, I don't see Newsom bearing any responsibility for his role in any of the economic decline or even in, I don't see that. He keeps parroting this whole right-wing narrative, has nothing to do with his management of the state.
As surfers, we spend so much.
It has nothing to do with that. It's just all right-wingers and they all need help. And that's why we've come up with grants and more money. And at this point, many of the small businesses are lost and they're not coming back. And that would include restaurants. At one point, I think there were at least 100, maybe 100, 160 restaurants in just, in like maybe an SD area that they knew that they were done and they weren't going to return. Because just like now, you get a couple of weeks of business and then you're out again. So yeah, it's not, but there again, has nothing to do with his management or his current, or even his current policies. But this is also about, he also has had a change of heart on the way he wants the state to deal with shoplifting. And that's part of the reason that I brought you guys in on this. But to me, I think it's all kind of tied together. He's trying to appeal to, and he's going to appeal to some of those that, I've had people say, they'd rather be homeless anywhere in the world. They'd rather be homeless in California than any other place in the world. So let that sink in. He appeals to that demographic, the liberals. Okay. And not to mention the kind of things that are going on at the spas up in LA. And I'm sure you guys have seen those buzzes. You've seen, there was a recent protest, I think this past weekend, in which, we have some people already in LA that are suing, saying that the right wingers were attacking them and that the police actually supported the right wingers and beat them down and pushed them back, and they were taking orders from white supremacists. So that was the buzz this weekend. So if you're tuning in, or if you look at Unite America First with Will Johnson, Will Johnson was actually on the scene for that latest thing, and that was at the Wee Spa again. He was there over the weekend or earlier this week at the Wee Spa, in which that has occurred. So now you've got, what are they calling it, Antifa, or those members, those groups are actually suing or trying to hold the LAPD accountable because there seemed to be projectiles thrown at the time. And of course you have some alleging that it was the right wingers that were, catapulting the projectiles, so there you go. So a lot of, it's crazy makers land. So that's what's kind of going on there. But I am going to get you on to another story, and we're going to go to the smash and grab portion of this. Now that you've heard something from Newsom on his, you've heard a little bit from Newsom on his other situation there. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with On. I really appreciate it. And it is the 11th hour, so I appreciate it. So before I do that, let's just take a couple of comments. And I want to start with Backyard Politics. Thank you so much for coming in. He says, California is a hellhole. He also follows it up and says, if there are so many Democrats in California, why are they watching, quote, right-wing TV shows? Interesting. You don't say. Isn't that ironic? And Joseph Francis Burton says, yeah, okay, right-wing misinformation. Has anybody made a supercut of... Okay. Well, I'm going to keep the mocktail word out of my mouth because, these people, they're radical and they're, they're all around. So yes, but thank you guys. And I read the comments for interaction around here. It's not that I'm not doing it by choice. It's just that, under the blackout state, that's where I am on that. So Jermaine G says the ad is nice, the beach and the nature. Yeah, but it was very, very disruptive, very distracting. So I'm going to get ready to take you on to another segment of the show. And we're going to get into Larry Elder and his current status in terms of what's developed this week. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll switch gears in just a second here, because I want to show you some of the developments that have come out of a superior court in Sacramento that's pertaining to Elder and his case. But before I do that, before we get done with King Newsom, I want to show you a clip of him proposing a new law aimed at curbing the organized retail theft. So that's kind of like what I was on about originally. But also, whenever you hear from Newsom, it's, I'm sure you'll be entertained. So we're going to go ahead and go there right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to hear from his new bill to combat crime. I mean, crime and a Democrat in the same sentence. Does that sound ironic to you? All right, so here we have it. I'm going to take you to this report right now from KTLA. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Leaders at a store right here in Long Beach. He was joined by people like LAPD Chief Michael Moore and Mayor Garcetti as he talked about crime trends. He says they're down long term in the state, but that short term they are seeing a rise in homicides and gun violence. And he said the state is doubling down on certain efforts to combat retail theft. Brazen theft on display in California. Shoplifting suspects in San Francisco this month seen fleeing a Neiman Marcus with handbags. In Glassell Park just last week, LAPD says shoplifting turned deadly with a Rite Aid employee shot and killed when he confronted two men trying to steal beer.
Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you.
Today, Governor Newsom signing a bill extending a state organized retail crime task force.
We've all seen the images of people rushing in. You're seeing them all across the state of California, those organized efforts, and they are organized disproportionate efforts, and we want to go after those rings.
Started in late 2019 and led by California Highway Patrol, officials say they've worked with local law enforcement to bust organized theft rings.
We made over 252 arrests, and we also recovered over $16.3 million worth of stolen merchandise.
California Retailers Association, which sponsored the bill, says so far the task force has been successful with these types of crimes.
A lot of really bad activities that you see, fencing, online marketplaces. What we're seeing now with these videos is another issue that we really need to address. So there's still work to be done. This is a great first step.
The governor today also meeting with mayors and police chiefs from across the state about crime generally, addressing a rising gun violence.
We know how to produce results. We're up against a gun epidemic.
With a recall looming, the California Republican Party chair calling Newsom ineffective at combating crime, citing homicides up 31% last year. Some retailers closing early because of theft, calling today a photo op. And the Organized Retail Theft Task Force goes through the beginning of 2026 for now. Officials today said prosecution is another part of this. I spoke to an LA County Deputy District Attorney today who says he does not see a real push from the DA to crack down on retail theft. For now, that's the latest.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So yeah, so there you go. So to me, these are the issues that I think he wants to, he wants to kind of douse, or he wants to try to put, he wants to try to quell this down, because as I said earlier, we're less than 10 weeks out from this recall election. And I think it's something as simple as like a two question ballot, I believe. And I think once you get past number one, I think that's where you might have, who knows if there's a miracle, it'll be beyond question number one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And so we also have, in other news, we also are going to turn to a story in which we're going to talk about Elder is in, and I'm going to share that with you. And we're going to go to that from our Have You Seen This, our segment of our show. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I want to say hello before I go into that to Bet Cali Garcia. Thank you, Bet Cali Garcia. These are these are fun. I don't remember where I got them from. Yeah, I do. I remember it now. But they're totally lightweight. They're not like weighing me down, and I don't, they're pretty flimsy and everything. So yeah. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Larry Elder story. And before I do that, I want to give you guys a few seconds, and I'll be right back. And just FYI, if you haven't had a look, we are available on LBRY as well as Odyssey. So if you are viewing any other content creators, you can now find Black Spring with Autumn there. And I strongly suggest that you might get over there, because I do think that the grips, are getting a little bit tighter, and I think everybody's starting to feel the squeeze, for the lack of a better word. So I'm going to go to a quick little break, and I'll be right back with Elder is in. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So I'm going to be taking you to another screen in which you guys have heard about it before. It's called Have You Seen This? So I hope you guys are doing well out there. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we're going to have a bit of a word from this comes from a Breitbart report in which Larry Elder wins in court and California must put him on the recall ballot. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will start there. You guys are just now joining us. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. But just before we get there, I want to give you just a little bit of some landscape information here. So we've been talking about Larry Elder throughout the week, and he faced a little bit of a bump earlier in which he was actually being denied being placed on the ballot due to what I guess I'm calling a technicality, or to me it's almost similar to a bit of a Trump move or a Trump kind of a hiccup in which the Secretary of State basically said, hey, you're not being transparent with your tax returns. And so according to this, and I'm going to give you some specifics on it, that according to the Breitbart News report, that Elder's campaign actually sued the Secretary of State after she excluded him from, at the time, the 41 candidates to replace Newsom. And if the majority of the voters choose to recall him, the reason given was Elder allegedly failed to file complete tax returns. Elder's campaign denied that accusation, noting that he had turned in 5 years of tax returns on time, and also arguing the law requiring candidates to submit the tax returns did not apply to recalls anyway. So I'm going to take you to that clip in which Elder also noted that the Secretary of State had exempted Newsom, imagine that, from the requirement, saying he was not a, quote, candidate. So I'm going to take you to that on the element of Have You Seen This? Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. It looks like we have somebody new in the house. Is it Two Hats? How are you, Two Hats? Thanks so much for tuning in. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. So have you seen this? Okay, according to this, Judge Lori Earle agreed with the latter point, quote, preliminarily, I am not convinced that the election code section 8902 applies to recall election. And if it did, I am of the opinion I am inclined to find that Mr. Elder substantially complied, end quote. Now, after lawyers for all parties had a chance to present their case, Earle made her ruling final, and these were her conclusions. Or, quote, I don't find that the recall election is a direct primary election ballot. By reaching that finding, I don't find that Mr. Elder was required to file tax returns at all. I would grant the petition and issue a peremptory and writ of mandate directing the respondent and all persons under her control to file Mr. Elder's nomination documents, qualifying him as a candidate, and place his name and ballot designation on the ballot and any sample ballot and voter pamphlet for a candidate for governor of the state of California in the September 14th recall election. So that comes out of your Breitbart News report. So I thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And look, and what can I say? We went from 41 flavors to now we have a whopping 46 flavors. And to me, I suspected all along that if Elder could move the needle on this, it would probably set precedents for some other people that may have been slighted or, almost getting crushed by Weber, the new Secretary of State. I mean, she is certainly fallen true to form right away. And she's just getting started. So imagine that. So also we have another from Mercury News that it was not immediately clear whether that ruling would lead to additional candidates being reinstated, nor whether the tax documents for recall candidates would remain on the Secretary of State's website. So Weber's office said it would have to respond later when asked how many recall candidates were stymied solely by their lack of compliance with the tax return requirement. So what does that do? Does that give you hope for the future elections that you're going to, you know, if you are of the conservative ilk or of, dare I say, Republican or GOP, however you want to spin this thing? Do you think you're going to get a fair shake, or do you think you're going to, you know, I don't see her name coming out of the news anytime soon. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And I'm going to read a couple comments here. And I'm going to go back a little bit, where Backyard Politics says the state is beautiful, but the politics are evil. Well, they're certainly crushing it, and it's certainly looking more like, I'm just going to tell you, with the amount of tents that I'm seeing, the growing number of tents, you know, to me, at San Francisco, you know, there's been talk, you know, in the city about setting up almost like a sanctuary kind of a zone, or almost there's an autonomous zone idea for tents and tent cities, but we're seeing newer tents and more tents in SoCal underneath bridges. So to me, the place is going to be looking trashed, looking third worldish, you know. But hey, they're making way for everybody else, right? I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I know the situation of any and everybody, but I will say that there's all kinds of situations out there, but the tents are growing, and these are, I think the state was proposing, or at least the city of San Francisco was proposing something like they wanted to spend up to $60,000 per, I'm not sure what the metrics were, but they want to spend that kind of money to preserve these tent cities and protect them. I mean, these cities that they show actually have gates around them, and you know, they're protected. They have their own guardship. You know, it's a utopic nightmare, dare I say, and nobody takes any responsibility for anything. You just heard from the governor; he's taking no responsibility for any of the policies. He's not. He's just saying, "Oh, well, we gave him money." You know, that's throwing money at things, and keep spending. That's the answer. The answer for everything is to spend. So yes, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. But yes, but then also the people have done petitions and whatnot. Do I think Newsom's serious about the smash and grab problems? No, you heard yourself. You know, the DA for one. I mean, you guys have heard some of these arguments about, you know, people. Oh, well, you've heard everything from smash and grab could be reparations. You've heard everything from, you know, oh, that person needed to eat. You've heard all kinds of survivorships, and I think the state of California has come up with a support system for just about anything you can imagine, except for homelessness. You know, if you are looking to apply for something, you have no address. That's where you will, that particular line is already, you're going to have that. That's well in place. Maybe they're coming up with addresses for these tent cities that they're creating, the state funded tent cities that they're funding. So yes, I thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So yes, so as I was saying, there was tons of, the people in these cities are petitioning because, like many places, elderly people, if you have a neighborhood Walgreens or a CVS, you need to be able to get into those places and not have to travel 3 blocks or 10, 20 blocks away to reach a pharmacy to either pick up your meds, whether you're disabled, you know, whatever your circumstances may be, whether you're elderly or whether you're disabled. You know, these people actually want their neighborhoods. They want their neighborhood retail, but I question, you know, the voting. But I can't say that. I think there's more conservative people or conservative mind people here in California than the media will ever allow. Newsom and the media will just parrot the whole right-wing narrative every time it comes up. They're not listening to the people. They're ignoring the people. they're just going to keep lying to you and keeping the narrative going there. So I thank you guys so much for tuning in, as always. So I have a couple comments that I want to read. And so I just, kudos to Larry Elder. But am I going to say, do I think the shenanigans are over for him? No, not by any stretch. I don't think the shenanigans are over for him. Now, whether they've printed the ballots or not, that might be the next challenge, to make sure you're actually on the ballot. As I said earlier, I think that, Newsom is just trying to, he's trying to make it, people have seen Larry's show is, nationally syndicated, and he's brought many of these issues to many of his platforms and nationwide. So everybody knows. So, he's pretending like he's got a solution, but I think it's just, just a little bit of smoke and mirrors. He's just trying to play it down a little bit to try to maybe bump Larry down a little bit. I'm not sure, but the state, I think there's some other conservatives or Republicans that are actually I think that the state had pretty much thrown quite a bit of support behind Kevin Faulconer, maybe even John Cox. I know that they felt like they were slighted by this Shirley Weber, Secretary of State. So they were able to maybe redress the judge with some of their issues, because they felt that, she wouldn't allow them to represent themselves as they would like to have been. So some of that has changed. And as I said earlier, we do have a list of 46 candidates right now. So it looks like, I guess that's going to be the final candidate list. And who knows? I guess the ballots will go out soon. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. I don't know, did anybody out here catch that town hall meeting on CNN? I've heard some things about that, but I haven't done enough research on it, and I have not watched it in its entirety to make a comment on it. So I won't, but I'm sure you guys will. Old School Wolf Media, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. So yes, but I think, I don't know, there's so many candidates, but we'll see what happens. I'm actually surprised that it wasn't narrowed down more, but it grew to five more candidates, and I don't recognize most of the ones that are on that list. And maybe I'll just drop it in the link for you guys to go through. But I did see Larry Elder's name on here, so we'll just have a look at it. We'll just scroll through it really quickly. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We'll just scroll through really quickly, and then you can have a look for yourselves. So I'm going to share the screen with you. Yeah, the hits just keep on coming. So this is actually, I think this is a Politico that has, this is the Politico that has the actual list. No, it's actually Mercury News. So I'll get it together here any minute. Any minute now. So I don't know. It's kind of like, this is one of those situations where, I applied for that job. I interviewed for that job. And you're thinking, where's the space on my resume for I interviewed for that job? It's not there. But as you can see, maybe you guys can see this. I'll try to give you the full scale on this one. Maybe you'll recognize some of these names. All right. And this is going to be our last segment on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it. So, of course, here you have, according to the mercurynews.com, a list of people who have qualified to challenge Governor Gavin Newsom. The upcoming recall election on September 14th was finalized late Wednesday night. These are the 46 Californians whose names will appear on the ballot. The list does not include a well-known Democrat or Republican as widely recognized as Arnold Schwarzenegger, who beat out more than 130 contenders to win the Gray Davis recall in 2003, but voters will likely be familiar with a few candidates, including reality star, you guessed it, starts with a C, last name ends with an R. That's Caitlyn Jenner. Okay, so the mail-in ballots should hit voters' mailboxes next month. So if you're around for the fun, check your box. We're available. So I'm just going to scroll through some of these. The ones that I recognize, I might say something, but I don't recognize, these Dems. Like, I'm not sure. Holly Bade, Democrat. I'm just going to keep scrolling here. But I did check to see, in fact, if not sure if this is not what I'm going to call an official list, but I think we'll just take it for now. John Cox and yours truly, Larry A. Elder. And he's listed under the Republican Party broadcaster / author. And there's Kevin Faulconer underneath that. Many of these names I don't recognize. And there's your Caitlyn Jenner. She's still in the running here. I'm not sure. Kevin Kiley, I've heard that name. Steve Lodge. Daniel Mercury, I'm familiar with that name. And yeah, and Anthony Trimino is another name that has gotten some buzz, but I don't know. Like I said, I think the state and the establishment, unfortunately, are going to they're going to steer the course here, and we'll see. But yeah, as you can see, there's some others here. But that brings us to the end of that list. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And I'm going to do one more infomercial, and I will say salute to everyone and wish you guys a great Thursday night, that is. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And also, this is just another reminder before I forget again. So if you are on LBRY or Odyssey, you can find Black Spring there, and it's actually going to be streaming there. So, you can catch it, whichever one of your choice. I will be right back. This show is brought to you in part by our sponsors. Whether you're interested in health, culture, politics, scripture, automobiles, or music, please check out Derek C. Williams, Killer Whale Channels, The Definition of Anarchy, Marcy T., Joseph Francis Burton, Paralysis by Analysis, Chrysler Imperial H, Little Miss Goth, AZ Infidel, Cold War Jesus, Anthony Scioli, and Let the Truth Be Told. We'll be right back right after this. All right, so let's take it from the top, shall we? Jermaine G, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And Latin Patriot. Yes, Latin Patriots here. Thank you so much for all your support. And John H. Roberts Jr., thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And Backyard Politics. It's nice to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And as I said earlier, we're all feeling the squeeze a little bit. So, I think you know what that's about. And Friends and Codes here. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Bet Callie Garcia, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And Two Hats, I think maybe you're new here. If you're not, thank you so much for coming in. You're welcome. Thank you. And of course, Old School Wolf Media, I really appreciate it. And Console Fix. Console Fix has a comment for me, and he says, I moved out of California in 2019, couldn't take it anymore. Well, I'll say this, we've all got our breaking points. And yeah. All right, guys. Well, once again, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for tuning in. And I'll see you guys on the next live stream. In the comment section on a video, Moonlight stream, have you seen this? Night Q, Real Unders, or Moonlight stream. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your Thursday / Friday, wherever you are.